So I think the natural question that would occur is, why would you cut this spectacular shot? Because it's obviously great. I want to see that film, Well, I feel that way too. The problem is that once you get past the initial sort of rush of seeing this very elaborate shot that shows you a lot of different things in one shot, and very impressively, is that it is no character's point of view. It is just a sort of godlike shot where you're presented this whole world, and it is spectacular, and there have been many fine shots like that, Touch of Evil being one, that work great. But I felt that this was Remy's movie, and it needed to be Remy's perspective. And I want to know the emotions that lead up to Remy looking into the kitchen. I don't just want it laid on a platter. You don't just cut to Darth going, "You're my son, Luke." I mean, we should be with Remy when he has that moment, and we should know how he's experiencing it and what is he feeling when he experiences it. And you kind of aren't this way. It did lay everything out, but I don't think that it took the audience with it.
It's Remy's first day on the job with Linguini. Previous scene, he gets the job with Linguini. And then first day they're right into it instead of learning how to cook together. And so it was our way to establish that Linguini was out of his element, couldn't cook, and that Remy was going to save the day with him.
Just in the concept was this central idea. As soon as we knew Remy was going to cook with Linguini, who was kind of this hapless, know-nothing guy in the kitchen, we always knew we would have this great juxtaposition of physical comedy, of Remy cooking with him, and the rest of the cooks kind of noticing everything and looking and going, "God, that guy's nuts," right?
Right.
But the thing that was interesting to me is we always had this kind of iconic thing of Remy in the drawer doing different spices and so forth, and it's interesting that never ended up in the final film.
One thing it did too with this sequence was starting to establish the cooks, trying to establish them a little bit more rough. I mean, they're gambling, and do you remember that they're gambling?
Yeah, and they're sort of disinterested. I mean, this kitchen took on every different incarnation, from a really well-working kitchen, high-functioning, to a formerly high-functioning, real tired, overripe kitchen. So it had a few different incarnations.
This also started to establish the love interest between Colette actually looking at Linguini going, "Oh, he's kind of totally weird, but there's something a little interesting about him." And then they got pushed together to start cooking.
Have a look at this one.
So this is one of the first scenes that I wrote. And there's a funny line that you can kind of hear at the beginning where Linguini says, "Hey, how you doing? You're feeling kind of chefy today, huh?" And that's literally me at that point in the process, because I didn't know anything about this world. And so it was easy for me to write a clueless cooking guy, because that's exactly what I was. As part of my writing process, I usually try to jump deep into the movie somewhere where characters are having problems, because it forces me to have one character talk to the other, and you find things out, and you find them out quickly. Gusteau was still alive at this point, and I hadn't figured out the problems of having Gusteau alive, and I was trying to deal with the story as it had existed when I got involved with the project. I think the most important idea I had in this scene ended up being to make the hat sort of transparent. They had always had Remy peeking out of the hat in order to see what was going on and stuff like that, and that was a tremendously cumbersome thing to do for the character, because it always made you wonder if the rat was going to be seen, and it was taking your attention off what you needed to be paying attention to, which is what Remy was paying attention to. So that one simple idea was a very liberating one, and that made its first appearance in this scene.
Heist was established to show Remy's family and what they did for a living, basically. They were this gang of heisting rats who would go and rob restaurants all over Paris, and the Fort Knox of restaurants was Gusteau's. It gave us a clear delineation between what Remy how he could not fit into these guys, because they were all about garbage and trash and these rough and tumble guys, and he was about cooking. And
So early on, I think heist became, in one of the story versions, one of the very first things we saw, the rat family. So we wanted to juxtapose Remy, how he was different from his community,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So the thing about Remy, he couldn't talk to anybody about his passion, right? Because he's a rat. So the only way for us, one of the experiments with how do you get in that world was this really fun idea, which was to go inside his
the
head.
fantasy sequence.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I decided to cut this scene months later when I was getting into huge problems with length, and I realized I had to get brutal on the film. And that one of the problems with all the previous versions of the film was that it had too many stories to tell, and it was giving equal weight to each one of them. So I had to get brutal, and Gusteau had to go. But he didn't really go, and that was good.